Hey, tonight we're heading into something a little more recent, and somehow even worse. A frozen pocket of World War II misery you've probably never heard about, because everyone involved was either too traumatised to talk about it, or too frostbitten to write it down. It's called the Battle of the Colmar Pocket. January 1945, Eastern France. A battle so cold, so brutal, and so logistically screwed that even seasoned veterans were crying in frozen foxholes, wondering how they ended up fighting Germans in waist-deep snow, with boots full of trench rot and coffee that came with ice crystals instead of steam. So before we go any further, do me a favour. Like this video if you actually enjoy what I do, or if you just want to suffer historically accurate misery in surround sound. Leave a comment with where you're tuning in from, and let me know what time it is. Always interesting to see who's listening to war trauma at 3 AM while trying to fall asleep. Now dim your lights, grab your blanket, and appreciate the fact that yours doesn't smell like wet wool and powdered milk. Because tonight you're getting drafted into one of the least glamorous, least remembered, and most physically miserable operations of the entire European theatre. There's no Band of Brothers soundtrack, no heroic flag raising, just snow, blood, diesel fumes, and the faint sound of someone choking on frozen spam. Welcome to the Colmar Pocket. Congratulations, you've just been drafted. No ticker tape parade, no emotional swell of patriotic music. Just a letter shoved into your hands by a guy with too many medals and not enough eyebrows telling you to report for duty. You're 18 years old. Or maybe 24. Doesn't matter. You were working in a factory, maybe finishing high school, maybe fixing cars and minding your business. Not anymore. Now you're Uncle Sam's newest piece of meat, and the butcher's already sharpening his knives. You don't start in France. You start in a freezing barracks in the middle of nowhere. Maybe Fort Dix, maybe Camp Carson. Doesn't matter. What matters is that the bed is a metal frame. The mattress is thin as your patience, and someone in the next bunk won't stop coughing. The food tastes like wet chalk, and everything you touch smells like grease, wool, or defeat. The uniform itches. The boots don't fit. And the rifle you're issued still has someone else's fingerprints on it, probably the last guy who didn't make it out of the Ardennes. Training is fast and bad. You learn to march, shoot, freeze, and pretend you understand what a platoon sergeant is yelling when he's had 2 hours of sleep and a caffeine problem. You're told how to clean your weapon, dig a foxhole, and stack your gear so it doesn't kill you when you fall on it during a night manoeuvre. No one tells you how to unclog a frozen latrine, or how to sleep when artillery is the lullaby, but you'll learn, fast. Then one day they hand you a pack, throw you on a truck, and suddenly you're at the docks. Everything smells like salt water, fuel, and cigarettes. The ship you're boarding looks like it's already sunk once and was just pulled out for a second chance. You climb aboard with 100 other guys, most of them trying to act tough, all of them faking it. Someone pukes before you even leave port. Someone else hasn't stopped praying since breakfast. You're just trying to remember if you packed socks. The Atlantic is rough. The bunks are stacked 4 high and barely wide enough for a spine. The food is a beige paste they swear is stew. You spend most of the trip either seasick, scrubbing decks, or listening to rumours about where you're headed. Paris, some guy says, will be liberators. Another guy says the front, and everyone goes quiet because you know what that means. It means cold, mud, Germans, and probably death. Nobody wants to say it, but everyone's thinking it. When you finally dock, it's not Paris. It's a busted up port with more rubble than road. France smells like diesel, gunpowder, wet stone, and desperation. You're herded onto a truck again. No time for sightseeing. The only monuments you're passing are burnt-out tanks and farmhouses missing their roofs. It's winter, January 1945. The last gasp of Hitler's nightmare, but no one told the Germans to stop fighting. And you've been assigned to the 3rd Infantry Division, slogging its way into a little-known hellscape called the Colmar Pocket. You don't even know what a pocket is yet. It sounds harmless, maybe even cosy. It's not. It's a stretch of territory along the Rhine River, where German forces have dug in like ticks, and the Allies, mainly Americans and Free French, are about to go digging them out. The problem? It's cold. Not bundle up cold. Not see your breath cold. This is your eyelids stick shut when you blink cold. Your snot freezes inside your nose cold. The kind of cold that breaks your bones slowly and makes your skin feel like it's made of glass. When you get off the truck, your boots hit slush so deep your ankles disappear. You're in Alsace now, a region so battered by war it's changed hands more times than a deck of cards. The ground is half snow, half blood, and all misery. The air smells like burnt wood and something metallic. It's smoke from the last skirmish, or maybe the next one. Someone hands you a map, a bandolier, and points toward a cluster of trees that are barely trees anymore. That's your unit's position. You walk. You don't ask questions. Questions are dangerous out here. Curiosity doesn't kill the cat. It kills privates. You meet your squad in a frozen ditch. They look like you, but older in the eyes. Everyone's covered in layers of mismatched wool, canvas, and hopelessness. Helmets are dented. Rifles are muddy. One guy has a patch over his ear. Another guy is missing 2 fingers, but still smokes like it's the only warmth left in the world. They nod at you. No handshakes, no introductions. They don't want to learn your name until you survive a week. And even then, only maybe. You dig in, literally. Your first assignment is to carve a foxhole out of the frozen earth, using a shovel that might as well be a spoon. Every strike bounces, and ground is permafrost. It takes hours, and when you're done, it's still not deep enough. You sleep in it anyway. You're handed a blanket that smells like wet dog, and told not to die before breakfast. That's considered a good night. There's no tent, no fire. Fire draws attention, and attention gets you killed. So you huddle under a tarp and pretend that the rations you were given are edible. It's a metal tin filled with mystery meat, stale crackers, and something called powdered eggs that taste like drywall soaked in regret. You chew through it anyway. Hunger doesn't care about flavour. You drink water that was melted from snow, boiled in a dented helmet, and flavoured with gun oil because your canteen leaks and you're too cold to fix it. Sleep comes in bursts. You're never really unconscious, just closed-eyed and twitchy, waiting for something to explode nearby. You hear machine guns in the distance, artillery further off, and the occasional pop of a flare. Every sound wakes you. Every silence is worse. You piss into a hole that immediately ices over. You stop feeling your toes. Then your fingers. You try to keep them moving. If you stop moving, you die. That's the rule now. Movement is life. Stillness is a death sentence. Your sergeant gives the morning briefing in a whisper. The objective is simple. Push forward, take the village, Hold it until relieved. Except nothing is simple out here. The map is wrong. The enemy is better dug in than expected. The terrain is soaked in mines and the snow hides them all like deadly Easter eggs. And the village? It's a pile of ruins filled with snipers and civilians who hate you as much as they hated the last guys in uniform. You move out at dawn, or at least what passes for dawn, just a slightly lighter shade of grey. Visibility is trash. Fog mixes with smoke. You can't see more than 20 feet ahead. The guy in front of you slips on ice and nearly cracks his skull. You keep walking. Gunfire cracks from the tree line. Everyone hits the dirt. The guy next to you doesn't move again. No scream. Just a thud and then stillness. You want to help, but you're told to keep moving. Always move. Moving means maybe surviving. Stopping means death, sympathy, or both. You're not scared. You passed scared about 5 miles back. Now you're just empty, moving on muscle memory and cold rage. The ground explodes nearby. Mortar shell. You're showered in mud, debris, and a piece of someone's jacket. You can't tell if it was friend or foe. Doesn't matter. You're still standing. That's the only scoreboard now. You finally reach a low wall and crouch behind it, heart racing, breath like smoke. Your hands are shaking, not from fear, but from frostbite. You fire your rifle, it jams. You clear it, fire again. The recoil feels like a sledgehammer. You think you hit something, but you'll never know. The snow muffles screams, or maybe there weren't any. Your squad takes the house, room by room, close quarters. Grenades and bayonets. Blood freezes on the floor before it soaks in. There's a body in the doorway, civilian, woman. Wrong place, wrong time. You step over her and throw up in the corner. Someone tells you to keep it down. There might still be Germans in the cellar. You clear it, no one's left. Just supplies, ammo, a stove. You huddle around it for 30 seconds until the sergeant barks to move on. No warmth is permanent, no break is safe. The counterattack comes that night. You're dug in behind sandbags made of snow and guilt. Shells land too close. Dirt rains from the sky. You fire blindly into the darkness, praying you're hitting something that deserves it. When the noise stops, 3 guys are gone and your hearing doesn't come back for an hour. You just sit there, lips split, ears ringing, staring at nothing. You made it through the first day. Now do it again tomorrow. You don't remember falling asleep, but you remember waking up, because something is crawling on your neck. You swat it, and your glove comes away with half a centipede and a piece of frozen leaf that somehow found its way into your collar overnight. Welcome to your new home. A shallow, uneven foxhole dug with tools that should be classified as medieval. It's about 4 feet deep, if you're lucky, and only because the last guy who tried to go deeper hit a frozen tree root and gave up after breaking the shovel handle and most of his spirit. This isn't just where you fight. It's where you eat, sleep, piss, and slowly start to forget what warmth ever felt like. It's a hole in the ground, barely wider than your body, and currently full of mud, water, and something that might be a dead rat, or a sock, or both. The sides cave in every time you shift your weight, and the bottom sucks at your boots like it's trying to keep you for good. It's wet, always wet. Not damp, not moist, wet. Like living inside a sponge that someone's been crying into for a week. There's a puddle collecting near your ankles that wasn't there an hour ago, and it's starting to smell like diesel and trench foot. Your poncho is stretched over the top as a makeshift roof, held down with twigs, rifle barrels, and prayer. It flaps in the wind and lets in snow like a sieve. It is, technically, shelter. But so is a wet cardboard box if you think about it hard enough. Your body has stopped shivering, which you know is bad. The cold doesn't feel cold anymore. It just feels distant. Like your nerves have given up trying to warn you. Your hands, double gloved, still ache with every movement. Your breath comes out in slow puffs that instantly freeze to your scarf, turning it into a crusty ice sleeve you can't take off because your ears will probably snap off if you do. Somewhere the sun exists. But here it's just a theory. You try to sit, but your butt hits a rock. You shift. Now your spine's against a root. There is no comfortable position. You're always either too twisted, too crunched, or too close to your own feet, which currently smell like boiled leather and rotting corn. You haven't changed your socks in days. Not because you don't want to, because you literally can't. Taking off your boots means committing to 20 minutes of foot exposure and a 1 in 4 chance you won't get them back on. Next to you is your buddy, or rather, the guy who drew the short straw on hole assignments. He's asleep, kind of. Head slumped forward, mouth slightly open, breath barely fogging in the air. He hasn't spoken in 2 hours, but his eyes flickered during the last shell burst. So you assume he's still alive. You're not friends, but you might die next to each other. So you tolerate his snoring and he tolerates your muttering. You reach into your pack. Not for food, that's pointless, but to check your socks. Again, still damp. Still folded against a cold can of Spam and a handful of wet cigarettes. You've stopped trying to keep anything dry. It's all soaked. Your letters from home, your extra undershirt, your morale, all saturated. There's a noise in the distance. A scraping, maybe. You freeze. Every sound out here could mean death. Enemy patrol. Friendly patrol. Deer. Nazi deer. You don't know. You just grip your rifle and wait. The mud sticks to the barrel. The scope fogs up. And the bolt slide still stutters from yesterday's jam. You whisper a curse and rub it with your sleeve, which is already frozen and probably making it worse. But it's not like you can pull out a cleaning kit. You haven't even unclenched your thighs since midnight. Eventually, the noise fades. Probably wind. Or maybe someone's boots 100 yards away. Either way, you don't care. You sit back down, sort of, and resume your shift of staring into darkness and occasionally poking your head up, just enough to remember that snow is still falling, and that the enemy still exists. You try to think of home, but your brain keeps defaulting to how much your left foot hurts. It's gone numb in a way that feels too permanent. You know you're supposed to move your toes, but they aren't responding anymore. You think of the medics and how they told you not to ignore frostbite signs. Then you remember the medic lost 2 fingers himself and is now doing triage with wool socks over his hands. So you flex your calf instead. It's the only thing that still listens. At some point, someone from command crawls by your position. He gives you the nod. That's it. No orders, no intel, just a nod like he's checking off a box labelled still breathing. You want to ask about rotation, or hot food, or God. But he's already gone, back into the fog. Your M1 is resting against your leg. It's heavy. Not just from the steel, but from the mud caked on the stock. And the fact that you've been holding it so long, your shoulder socket feels like it's been welded shut. You haven't fired it today. That's good. Firing means fighting. Fighting means people dying. And not firing means the Germans probably don't know where you are. Yet. A guy 2 holes down starts coughing. Not a polite cough. A wet, barking, get this man some penicillin kind of cough. It echoes down the trench line. Someone yells at him to shut up. He coughs louder. You think about that medic again. The one with the fingerless mittens. You wonder if he's got anything left in his bag. Or if the guy's just going to be another empty foxhole by morning. The smell here is something you can't quite explain. It's not just mud. It's old sweat, rusted metal, damp wool, cordite, and a constant underlying perfume of decay. Not the dramatic corpse on the battlefield kind. The slow, creeping stink of mould, old blood, and foot rot. You start to forget what fresh air ever smelled like. You wonder if you'll ever smell a clean shirt again. Or a woman, or coffee that doesn't taste like powdered bitterness. You check your watch. It's not working. The glass is cracked, and the hand stopped sometime last night. Maybe during the shelling. Maybe when you slammed it against your knee diving for cover. It doesn't matter. Out here, time is less about hours and more about how long since the last explosion. At some point, snow starts falling again. Soft, quiet, sinister. It looks peaceful, but you know better. It's a blanket over everything. Footprints, bloodstains, discarded shell casings, broken helmets. A fresh coat of denial. You let it cover your helmet and shoulders. You don't bother brushing it off anymore. It adds insulation, sort of, until it melts down your collar. You're supposed to take turns sleeping, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. But no one follows that. If you sleep, you risk not waking up. Not because of the enemy, because of the cold. Guys have died in foxholes like this, in this exact position. Rifle in hand, helmet on. Just never moved again. Found stiff as a board the next morning, eyes frozen open, looking straight at nothing. So you sit and wait, and listen to your own heartbeat and your own breath, until even those sound like intrusions. Then, somewhere in the distance, a flare goes up. You see it reflected off the low clouds. Green, which means something, but you can't remember what. You know it's not good. Someone further down the line starts shouting. You raise your rifle. Here we go again. You never really fall asleep. Not properly. Not in a foxhole where every muscle stays half tensed and your cheek sticks to the stock of your rifle like a frozen tongue on a flagpole. But eventually your eyes close. Maybe for a few minutes, maybe longer. You can't tell. What you do know is that you're wrenched back into consciousness by the sound of the earth trying to fold itself inside out. It starts with a whistle. That's how you know it's artillery and not thunder. Thunder doesn't whine on its way down. You only get about 2 seconds between the whistle and the impact. That's if you're lucky. The first shell hits 20 yards behind your position, and the ground jumps under you like it's trying to throw you out. A wave of dirt slaps your helmet. You blink. Everything is dust and noise. You try to yell something, maybe a curse, maybe a warning, but your voice disappears in the next blast. You've been in this position long enough to know not to stand up. Ever. Standing makes you a silhouette, and silhouettes are target practice. So you stay low. You curl deeper into your hole like a dying animal, and pray the shrapnel picks someone else. The shelling doesn't stop. It never stops, with 1 or 2. These aren't warning shots. This is a barrage. Probably an 88 battery, German, accurate, fast. You can almost hear the gunners adjusting, zeroing in, not till they know you're here. Now they're just finding your exact address. Another impact, closer. A shower of ice and gravel pelts your back. The guy next to you screams something unintelligible. You glance over. He's fine, just scared. Or maybe his eardrum popped. You can't hear anything properly anymore. Just a high-pitched tone, like someone left a kettle boiling inside your skull. You want to check your rifle. You want to dig deeper. You want to be anywhere but here. But the only thing your body lets you do is curl tighter and hope. Someone yells, "Incoming!" But it's redundant now. Everything is incoming. Shells, mud, splinters, the sudden realization that you might not see tomorrow. Then it happens. A hit too close. A direct impact near one of the foxholes about 15 feet down the line. The explosion is enormous. You feel it through your ribs. The ground shudders like it's trying to throw up. You look over, and where there were 2 men, now there's just steam and a black crater. Nothing else. The blast ate them whole. No bodies, no gear. Just a void. Someone screaming again. Could be a unit. Could be someone else. The chaos makes everything anonymous. Names vanish. Rank doesn't matter. You're just shapes in the snow, waiting to be erased. You try to get lower. There's no lower. You're already flat. Your face is pressed against something wet and gritty that might be yesterday's breakfast or someone else's spilled rations. You breathe through your scarf and taste dirt and bile. You close your eyes, but it doesn't help. You still see the flash with every impact. Bright white, like someone's taking pictures of your last few seconds. There's a lull, not silence, just a pause. The kind of quiet that feels like it's leaning in close to hear you breathe. You don't move. No one does. Everyone's waiting to see if the barrage is over or just reloading. Then a crack, different this time. Sharper. Rifle fire. Which means one thing. Infantry's moving. They shelled the hell out of you to soften the line. Now they're coming to poke holes in whatever's left. Your sergeant appears. You don't hear him. You just see his mouth moving and his hand pointing. He gestures toward the tree line. You nod. Doesn't matter if you understood. You're moving now. You climb out of the foxhole. Your knees barely cooperate. Your back protests. You raise your rifle and start advancing, 1 foot at a time, slipping over churned up snow and fragments of people you never met. The world is smoke and blood. You pass a helmet that's still smoking. You pass a leg. Just a leg. Nothing else. The enemy isn't waiting in plain sight. They never are. They're dug in too, somewhere just beyond the trees. Probably in bunkers made of frozen dirt and timber. Probably watching you right now, through scopes they've already calibrated to your height. Someone ahead of you drops. No shout, no warning. Just down. You move faster. Not toward the body. Away from it. Because if they hit one of you, they're about to hit the rest. You find cover behind a rock that might be part of a ruined barn or a monument. Doesn't matter. It's hard and big enough to hide behind. You return fire. You don't see targets. You're just firing where the bullets came from. Suppression, they call it. A fancy word for making enough noise to maybe scare someone else into keeping their head down. The next 10 minutes are a blur of snow, smoke, bark splinters, and shouting. Your body moves on instinct. You reload without thinking. You duck before the shots come. You fire because not firing is worse. You hit nothing. Or maybe someone. You'll never know. Then it's over. Or at least the volume turns down. No more explosions. Just moaning. Some from your side. Some from theirs. The snow is red now. It always looks red after this. You wonder if it will ever look white again. You're ordered to pull back. The push didn't work. Not enough ground gained. Too many bodies lost. Back to the foxhole. You drop into it like a sack of broken furniture. Every joint screams. You don't even remember how long you've been awake. You could sleep for a week, but you know you won't. Not really. Not while the smell of cordite and scorched wool is still stuck in your nose. Not while your hands still shake when you try to light a cigarette, and the lighter won't spark because everything is soaked. You sit there, breathing, listening, waiting for the next round of nothing, because in the Colmar Pocket, the only guarantee is that it's never really over. You don't know what time it is. Morning, probably. Not because the sun's up. The sky still looks like wet concrete. But because someone just kicked your boot and shoved a can into your lap. That's breakfast. You don't ask what it is. You already know. It's a K-ration tin, dented, half frozen, and probably older than you. Inside is a chunk of something vaguely resembling meat. It might have been edible once. Now it's just a greasy brick surrounded by congealed fat and a smell that hits the back of your throat like spoiled motor oil. Your fingers barely work. You struggle with the opener, a tiny metal torture device called the P-38. It's supposed to be simple. It's not. Your gloves are wet, your hands are stiff, and your patience wore out somewhere between the artillery barrage and the part where your foxhole filled with ice water. You finally pry the lid open, and the meat inside makes a soft squelch sound like a dying frog. No one speaks during breakfast. There's nothing to say. You're all just sitting there, knees drawn up, boots steaming, shoulders hunched like a row of miserable gargoyles, chewing quietly and pretending not to notice the steam rising from the next guy's breath smells like an infected tooth. You scoop the meat out with the back end of your knife. It's cold. Not just cold, the kind of cold where the fat cracks like glass in your mouth, and your jaw locks up mid-bite. You chew anyway, not because you're hungry, but because you have to. If you don't eat now, there might not be a later. Someone passes around instant coffee. It's not hot. It's barely warm. It's water that was boiled 3 hours ago and stored in a dented thermos wrapped in a sock. It tastes like burnt pencil shavings. You drink it anyway. It's the only thing keeping your stomach from turning itself inside out. No one gets refills. There's no extra. There's just a bitter sip for each of you, and a silence that stretches until someone breaks it by coughing into their sleeve or muttering a curse at nothing in particular. You pull out your hardtack, a cracker designed by someone who clearly hated teeth. It's supposed to be bread, it's not. It's a weapon disguised as food. You smack it on your helmet first, just to soften it up. It doesn't help. You bite down and feel something shift in your molar. You chew slowly, grinding it down like gravel, swallowing quickly so it doesn't scratch your throat on the way down. There's a chocolate bar too. D ration. Looks like a Hershey bar. It's not. It's brown, sure, but that's where the resemblance ends. It tastes like dusty cardboard and sadness. It's packed with calories, though. That's what the briefing said. Sustains energy in high-stress environments. You take one bite and decide starvation might be a more pleasant option. Someone jokes about trading their chocolate for a bullet. No one laughs. Not because it's not funny, but because no one has the energy to fake a chuckle. One guy tries to light a cigarette. The match breaks. He doesn't try again. He just stares at the broken stick like it personally betrayed him. Your stomach growls anyway. Not because it wants food, but because it's confused. It doesn't recognise what you just put in it. It wants a hot meal. A real one. Scrambled eggs, toast, bacon, hell, even oatmeal. But those are fantasy items now, like unicorns or dry socks. You think about the last decent meal you had. Can't remember. Might have been back in camp before shipping out. Might have been your mum's cooking, if you're lucky enough to still remember what that tasted like. Might have been a burger you ate too fast while waiting for a train that brought you here. Either way, you're not getting another one anytime soon. A shell lands in the distance. Everyone flinches automatically. No one drops their food. You get used to it. The explosions, the way they shake the ground and jolt your insides. But you don't waste calories reacting anymore. Unless it's close, you just keep chewing. Breakfast lasts about 5 minutes. Not because you're in a rush, but because the food runs out. You lick the spoon. You fold the tin. You shove everything back into your pack. Not because you're neat, because you don't want to carry any extra trash when you get orders to move again. You look around. Everyone else is finishing up. One guy is picking meat scraps off his glove. Another is licking the inside of the coffee cup like he thinks there's still flavour left in it. The sergeant walks by and gives the signal. Form up. No toothbrush. No water to wash your face. No time to stretch or digest. Breakfast isn't a meal. It's a logistical formality. You eat so you don't pass out during the next march. That's it. You shoulder your gear. Your pack feels heavier. It's not. You're just more tired. More worn down. Your stomach feels full, but wrong. Like it knows the calories are there, but doesn't trust them. Your breath still fogs in the cold. Your lips are cracked. Your mouth tastes like meat grease and powdered drink mix. You line up. Rifle in hand. Eyes forward. Boots crunching softly as you step out of the foxhole and into another day of whatever this is. And just like that, breakfast's over. Getting dressed in the Colmar Pocket isn't about comfort. It's not even about staying warm. It's about stacking as many layers of regulation-issued disappointment onto your body as possible and hoping it buys you a few extra minutes before your fingers turn black. You don't change clothes. You just rearrange the ones you've been wearing for the last 5 days. Your skin is red from the friction, chafed from wool, and pockmarked from bites that may or may not be lice. No one knows anymore. No one wants to know. Your uniform starts with the basics. Long underwear, if you were lucky enough to get a pair that wasn't already hole punched by time and prior owners. Then the wool shirt. It smells like mildew and gun oil and hasn't been truly dry since the train ride in. Then the pants. Heavy, itchy, stiff from frozen sweat and whatever mystery fluid soaked into them the night you face planted into your foxhole floor. They take 10 minutes to pull up because the fabric has the flexibility of cardboard and the personality of a wet tarp. Then the wool sweater. It was once olive drab. Now it's some undefined shade of dirt. It itches in places you didn't know had nerve endings. Every time you lift your arms to pull it over your head, it scrapes your chest like sandpaper, and the static shock could probably restart a Jeep. Then comes the field jacket. Thick canvas, lined with more wool, and about as breathable as a coffin. It's designed to keep wind out, which it sort of does, but also keeps in every drop of sweat, grime, and stink you've built up since arrival. You've worn it in snow, sleet, blood, and whatever that weird yellow slush was that leaked from a busted ration tin. The zipper's broken. The buttons are holding on by threads that look like dental floss. You don't fix them. You just tuck the jacket tighter and hope. The overcoat is next, if you got one. Not everyone does. There weren't enough to go around, so they issued them to whoever had the worst frostbite potential or the loudest complaints. It's long heavy, and smells like mothballs and crushed dreams. You tie it shut with a rope, because the original belt went missing sometime back near Howson. It's bulky. It makes running impossible and crawling hilarious. But it's warmish, and that's the only metric that matters anymore. Gloves? Kind of. They're thin wool liners, probably from a crate marked emergency use only, that got opened 3 months ago and never restocked. If you're lucky, they still have fingers. Most don't. Some guys wrap extra socks around their hands like makeshift mittens. Others just keep their hands in their armpits and pray they never have to reload fast. You do both. Your fingers have gone numb so often you're starting to think they're optional. Your helmet goes on last. Steel pot, no padding, no luxury. It's heavy, cold, and every time you bump it against a branch or a wall, it rings like a dinner bell. You wear it anyway, because not wearing it is a one-way ticket to a closed casket funeral. It smells like rust and last week's rain. The chin strap never quite fits. You either cinch it so tight it cuts off circulation, or leave it loose and let it flap like a flag during every wind gust. You check your boots last, or more accurately, you think about them and sigh. They were never waterproof. Now they're waterlogged, cracked, and stiff from ice. The soles are worn flat and slick as soap. The leather's curled up at the toes, and the laces are just frayed strings holding on out of spite. Inside, your socks are soaked. You stopped trying to dry them 2 days ago. You just rotate which pair you hate less. You wiggle your toes, or try to. Half of them don't respond. That's not dramatic. That's just fact. Frostbite doesn't announce itself with a big trumpet. It creeps in, like everything else out here. You'll know it's real when your toe turns purple and the medic says something vague like, "We'll keep an eye on it." Translation: start saying goodbye. You strap on your web gear. Ammo pouches, canteen, bayonet, maybe a grenade if you haven't already used it. Everything feels like dead weight. Every step makes it jangle, like a dinner service in a washing machine. The rifle sling cuts into your shoulder, but you've stopped noticing. It's just part of your skeleton now. By the time you're fully dressed, you feel like you've aged 5 years. You're sweating under the wool, but still freezing. You're carrying 70 pounds of equipment that you'd gladly trade for 5 minutes of dry feet. You move stiffly, like a puppet whose strings are tangled in barbed wire. And it's not just the weight, it's the knowing. The certainty that everything you're wearing is designed to help you survive a little longer, but not much longer. The gear doesn't make you invincible. It just makes the odds slightly less suicidal. Your layers aren't protection. They're a gamble, a wool-wrapped bet against snow, steel, and shrapnel. You glance around at the other guys. Same uniform. Same stares. Everyone looks like a bundle of misery held together with straps and willpower. No one talks while dressing anymore. You don't comment on missing buttons or mismatched gloves. You don't joke about someone's helmet being too big. Those conversations stopped days ago. You sling your rifle over your shoulder, adjust your coat, and step back into the line. There's no inspection, no applause. You're not ready. You're just dressed. And that's enough. Ahead of you, someone's already moving. Patrol? Rotation? Doesn't matter. You're going too. The Germans want you dead, sure. But the cold doesn't just want you dead. It wants you to suffer first. Slowly, methodically, piece by piece. Out here in the Colmar Pocket, bullets are only one threat. Frostbite is the other enemy, and it's always winning. The cold isn't dramatic. It doesn't make noise. It just waits. It gets into your bones when you're distracted. It creeps past your gear, under your collar, into your boots, through your gloves. And once it's in, it never leaves. You think you know cold? You don't. Not this kind. This is deep cold. The kind that makes your eyelashes freeze together if you blink too slow. The kind that numbs your ears so fast you forget they're there, until you bump them and realise you've been growing icicles on your own head. This cold doesn't feel like winter. It feels like punishment. Your breath freezes on your scarf, then refreezes with every exhale until it becomes a solid wall of frost across your face. You peel it off and rip out half your beard with it. Your nose drips constantly, but the moment it hits air, it becomes a crust. Eventually, you stop wiping it. What's the point? You're not trying to impress anyone. Your hands go first. Even with gloves, even with pockets, they're always numb. You don't realise just how bad it is until you try to reload and drop half your cartridges in the snow. You feel nothing. Not cold, not pain, just absence. Your fingers might as well be ghosts taped to your palms. At some point, one of the guys in your squad pulls off his glove to pick something up, and a chunk of his pinky stays behind inside the fabric. No screaming. Just a dull stare, and the kind of silence that means everyone else is now rechecking their fingers. You keep moving because stopping is worse. If you sit too long, your joints stiffen. If you lie down, you stop waking up. You've seen it happen. Some poor bastard curls up near a wall for 5 minutes of shut-eye and never opens his eyes again. Found the next morning stiff as wood, curled like a question mark, rifle still across his lap. The boots are the worst part. They trap the cold like a secret. Your socks haven't been dry in a week. You wring them out when you can, hang them on your belt, pray the air might suck out some of the damp. It never does. They're frozen solid by nightfall. You put them back on anyway. You have to. It's not about comfort anymore. It's about whether your toes survive the week. And honestly, you've started to make peace with the idea that they won't. You stop feeling hunger. That's how cold it is. You eat because it's habit. Because you know you'll collapse without fuel. But the stomach goes quiet. Shuts down. The body conserves. Like it knows it's in danger. Like it's already halfway into hibernation. You move slow. You speak less. Even your thoughts come slower. Like they're freezing halfway through formation. Every breath feels like inhaling ice splinters. It burns going in, but not in a hot way. In a dry, scraping way. Your lungs ache, your chest tightens, and you start to cough, which only makes the cold feel deeper. Some guys try breathing through scarves. It helps until the scarf gets wet. Then it freezes, hardens, and cracks like a board. The worst nights are the ones with wind. When the sky's clear and the stars are out, you know you're screwed. Clear sky means colder air. The wind cuts straight through every layer like they're made of tissue paper. It roars across the snowfields, blasts through trenches, shakes trees like they owe it money. You huddle tighter, curl smaller, bury your face in your arms, and wish for the one thing you thought you'd never want in a war zone: a working radiator. Fires are a luxury. You can't build one in the open. The glow might give away your position. The smoke might drift the wrong way. You risk it only when you're desperate, and even then, it's just a quick burn with damp wood that spits and dies within minutes. Not enough to warm your bones, just enough to tease you with the memory of warmth. Sometimes, when the wind stops, it's worse. Because then you can hear everything, the creaking of branches, the shifting of snow, the wet coughs of men whose lungs gave up hours ago, the muffled sobs of someone trying to be quiet, and the eerie, absolute silence that follows when even those sounds stop. You can't feel your feet anymore. You keep telling yourself they're still there, but each step is guesswork. You've slapped them, stomped them, cursed at them. Nothing. They're just attached. For now. The medic told you to check them every night. He also told you to rotate your socks, elevate your legs, and try to stay dry. You laughed so hard, you coughed up part of your will to live. Every time you get out of the foxhole, your knees scream. They don't bend right. You move like a mannequin, stiff, uneven, dragging half of yourself through the snow. Your thighs are raw from the constant rub of wet wool. Your shoulders burn from the weight of your gear. And still, you march. Because stopping isn't rest. Stopping is freezing in place. And the Germans know all of this. They're freezing too, sure, but they've been dug into this region longer. Their winter gear is better. Their positions are fortified. They have houses, real ones, with roofs and walls. You've seen them. Or what's left of them after the last firefight. Sometimes you find rooms with actual stoves. Not working, but still standing. You sit near them for a minute. Imagine what it'd feel like if it were hot. Then the shelling starts again, and you're back in the snow. You hear about guys losing fingers. To frostbite, to accidents, to desperation. One guy tried to cut off his boot with a bayonet when his foot started turning black. Didn't even flinch. Just said he'd rather lose a toe than lose the whole thing. He was probably right. The cold doesn't kill all at once. It breaks you in increments. First your fingers stop working, then your knees, then your spine stiffens. Your jaw aches. Your eyes water. You stop sweating. You stop shivering. You stop talking. At some point, you stop caring. The Germans might shoot you. The cold just waits. You don't get a warning. No trumpet. No orders barked with purpose. Just a muttered command from someone up the line, and suddenly you're on your feet, packing up what's left of your dignity, strapping your gear tight, and getting ready to march through a place you can't even pronounce properly. Alsace. Sounds romantic on a map. In reality, it's a frozen, mud-choked, artillery-blasted obstacle course designed by someone who clearly lost a bet with God. The first step is always the worst. Your legs don't bend right. Your feet hit the frozen ground like they've forgotten how to walk. It takes you a full minute to straighten your back, re-strap your helmet, and accept that you're not going to feel your toes for the next 10 miles. Someone coughs, someone else grunts, no one talks. You move out in single file. The line stretches through what used to be farmland. Now it's just open, snow-covered sludge, broken up by dead trees, broken fences, and the occasional crumpled artillery cart half buried in ice. There's no trail, just ruts left by tank treads and boot prints frozen into the mud like fossils. You try to step in them, but they're too far apart or too deep. So you forge your own again, over and over, until your thighs burn and your knees throb like they're being jackhammered from the inside. The pack on your back feels heavier with every step. 70 pounds of ammunition, gear, water you can't drink because it's frozen solid, and food you can't eat unless you've recently made peace with intestinal suicide. Your rifle slung across your chest, bouncing against your ribs with every step. It's caked in grime and frost, and probably hasn't been cleaned since the last time you were bored enough to care. And then there are the blisters. Oh yes, they start as little itches, barely noticeable under your socks. Then they bubble. Then they pop. Then they freeze. Then they rub raw again as you keep marching. You feel the warm squelch as one bursts, and you just keep going. Because what else are you going to do? Sit down and ask politely for a ride? Your boots start to betray you about 2 miles in. The tread's gone. The laces snap. One heel folds under itself and makes every step a gamble. A guy behind you slips on a patch of ice and takes 2 others down with him. No yelling. Just a dull thud and a short curse. They get up, limping, bleeding, keep going. The terrain keeps changing. Snow, ice, mud. Then ice again, then mud again. You try to guess where the solid ground is, and you're wrong most of the time. One step you're upright, the next you're knee-deep in cold sludge. That smells like something died in it months ago. You pull your foot out and leave your soul behind with it. Eventually, your kneecaps start to give out. Not from injury, but from overuse. They ache, they click, they grind like rusted hinges. Every time you crouch, it's a negotiation. Every time you stand, it's a threat. You start to rely on the guy ahead of you for pacing. If he slows down, you thank him silently. If he speeds up, you curse his entire lineage. Your shoulders ache from the straps cutting in. Your lower back feels like it's hosting a bonfire. You stop wiping your nose. It's been running non-stop since dawn, and your scarf is already crusted over with frozen mucus and spit. You can't tell if the wet patch on your chest is sweat or melted sleet. Doesn't matter. It's cold either way. Someone up front stumbles. A mine? No, just a hole hidden under snow. You mark it, kind of, with a stick, then keep going. No time to do it properly. You just shout a warning over your shoulder and hope the guy behind you hears it. He probably won't. Half of you can't hear anything anymore from the constant shelling and exposure. Then you reach a ridge. A shallow incline that looks harmless until you try climbing it, with knees made of soup and boots that grip like ice skates. You slip once, catch yourself, slip again, swear out loud. Someone offers you a hand. You don't take it. Not because of pride, because you don't trust your own balance enough not to take him down with you. The top gives you a view of the next valley. It's not inspiring, just more of the same. Broken trees. Blackened fields. A few roofless houses in the distance. Smoke curling up from one of them. Could be friendly. Could be Germans. Could just be the wind teasing you with the idea of warmth again. You descend, knees screaming, thighs on fire. You've stopped trying to remember how many miles you've done. You just measure time in heartbeats now. 1 step, 1 heartbeat, 1 more insult to your already mangled arches. Halfway through the next stretch, someone vomits into the snow. Doesn't even break stride. Just leans over, ejects the contents of their stomach, wipes their chin with a frozen glove, and keeps walking. The rest of you barely notice. There's no time to worry about digestion. By the time you reach your next stop, it's not really a stop. Just a pause behind a half-collapsed barn where someone waves you into a ditch and tells you to dig in. No tents, no fires, just dig. The mud's frozen again. Your shovel's bent. You consider crying, but your tear ducts are dry and your emotions checked out hours ago. You collapse into the shallow hole. Your thighs twitch uncontrollably. Your feet feel like they've been replaced with wooden blocks. Your knees, if they still exist, are planning a rebellion. You made it to here, wherever here is. You unclip your pack. You unsling your rifle. You sit in silence and try to remember what day it is. No one knows. One guy says Thursday, another says Monday. It doesn't matter. The only calendar out here is the number of working toes you've got left. And tomorrow, you march again. You're supposed to feel safer with a rifle in your hands. That's the theory anyway. The truth? In the Colmar Pocket, your rifle is just another cold, metal disappointment. You cradle it like a lifeline, sleep with it across your chest, drag it through mud, snow, and broken doorways. And when the time comes to actually use it, it's frozen solid. Just like your fingers. You don't notice right away. It's not like you get a warning light. There's no alert, no vibration. Just that first moment when you squeeze the trigger and nothing happens. No recoil, no bang, no nothing. Just a dull click that tells you you're holding a glorified metal club. You try to work the bolt. It doesn't move. It's glued shut with a mix of ice, dirt, and the kind of congealed oil that's supposed to keep things running, but now feels more like tar. You spit on it. Doesn't help. You breathe on it. The moisture just freezes. You try to slap it open with your glove and nearly break your thumb. That's when you realise your gloves are soaked through again. Your fingers are numb. You can't feel the bolt, let alone fix it. You look around. You're not the only one. 2 other guys are hunched over their weapons, mouths pressed to bolts, trying to heat them up with breath that barely rises in the frigid air. Someone's banging theirs against a rock. You want to stop him, but you don't, because for all you know, that might work. You remember the briefing. Keep your weapon dry, don't overlube it, store it inside your coat at night. Great advice from someone who's never slept in a foxhole filled with freezing mud, rats, and dreams of dental work. You did everything right. Mostly. And your weapon still betrayed you. Eventually the bolt gives. You jam it open, force it back, hear something snap. Could be ice. Could be part of the rifle. Doesn't matter. It cycles. You chamber around. You think. You can't actually see because your scope's fogged over and your hands are too cold to wipe it clean. Then come the sounds, not distant ones, close. Pops of rifle fire, German, maybe 100 yards out, maybe less. You duck, roll into the shallow trench you helped dig 3 hours ago with a shovel that hated you, and press your cheek against the stock. It's cold as death and just as inviting. You raise the barrel, squint, try to line up a shot, but your hands shake too much. Not from fear. You're way past fear. This is the tremble of joints that haven't worked right since Tuesday, and nerves that are firing blanks. You try to steady yourself. Deep breath. Aim. Finger on the trigger. Except now your glove is in the way. You can't feel the trigger through the wool. You pull it off with your teeth, spitting it into the snow. You try again. This time your bare finger sticks to the cold metal. Not a joke. Not an exaggeration. Skin to steel in sub-zero temperatures means adhesion. You rip it away and leave a little bit of yourself behind on the trigger guard. You wince. You curse. You fire. The round goes off. Recoil slams into your shoulder. Feels good, weirdly, like the rifle remembered its purpose. You work the bolt. It sticks again. This time you don't wait. You use your knee to slam it back into place. It grinds, resists, then clicks. You're live again. For now. The guy next to you isn't so lucky. His rifle won't cycle at all. He's using it as a spotting stick, pointing out muzzle flashes. "There," he says. "Behind the hedge." You fire. The hedge erupts in snow and splinters. You think you hit something. You hope. He gives you a thumbs up. Or maybe he's just flexing his hand to keep it from dying. Return fire comes fast. Bullets crack overhead. You duck lower. Someone yells out, "Hit?" Maybe. You don't check. You keep firing. 2 shots, cycle. 1 shot, jam, clear, fire again. Your hands are bleeding now. Little cuts from the frozen edges of your gear. And you don't stop. Pain means you can still move. After a while the shooting stops. Or slows. You don't know why. Maybe they pulled back. Maybe they ran out of ammo. Maybe they're repositioning. That last one's the worst option. You stay down. You clean what you can. Blow on the receiver. Wrap your finger in a scrap of cloth. You notice your trigger hands turning grey. One of the guys hands you a flask. Not alcohol, that's a luxury. Hot water, barely. You pour a little over the bolt. It hisses, steams. For a second your rifle feels like it's working again. You take a breath. You know it won't last. Nothing out here does. You look at your hands. Cracked. Swollen. Raw. You try to stretch your fingers. They move, barely. Like twigs bending in wind. This is what you're supposed to fight with. Frozen hands. Jammed rifles. Half a cigarette and a pack full of regrets. The sergeant walks by, shouting something about fallback positions. You don't answer. Just nod. Your lips are too stiff to talk. You sling the rifle again. You move. Slowly. The snow crunches. Your breath wheezes. And your weapon hangs against your chest like a reminder. Next time they shoot at you, better hope they jam first. You don't remember when the snow turned to mud. It's hard to say exactly. It kind of sneaks up on you. One day it's just powder blowing off rooftops and piling against your boots. And the next, it's clinging to your legs like you owe it money. You stopped noticing the difference between wet and soaked 2 days ago. Now it's just sinking. Every step you take, you sink. Every place you sit, you sink. You start wondering if this whole damn region is just a swamp in denial. Alsace isn't flat. It's not hilly either. It's worse. It's uneven in that awkward way where every trench, road and building is on a slight angle. Just enough to funnel water directly into your foxhole. The Colmar terrain doesn't absorb moisture. It collects it. Stores it. Weaponizes it. Fields are lakes. Roads are rivers. And buildings. They're mud-wrapped coffins with walls. You start marching again. You always are. And your boot disappears past the ankle with your second step. The suction is immediate. You try to pull it free and nearly dislocate your hip. You get it out eventually, but not before the sound it makes draws every eye to you. That squelch. That heavy, wet schlop like you just stepped into a stomach. Everyone knows it now. Everyone hates it. Your pants are soaked up to the thighs, heavy enough to make walking feel like dragging sandbags. The wool is stiff, crusted, smells like mildew and cold meat. Your socks, beyond wet, they've passed through all known states of matter and have settled into something between pudding and regret. Then there are the mines. Oh yes, the mud is bad enough on its own, but somewhere under it, or maybe right on top of it, are mines. Lots of them. Anti-personnel. Anti-tank. Booby traps wired into doors, stairs, even fence posts. Some marked, most not. Because the rain washed away the markers, and the maps are either wrong or written in handwriting that looks like someone had a seizure while drawing spaghetti. The worst part? The mines don't always work cleanly. Sometimes they just mangle. You hear it before you see it. A sharp pop, a grunt, and then screaming. You already know what it means. The guy stepped wrong. Maybe he triggered a shoe mine. Maybe a wooden box mine that metal detectors can't even find. Doesn't matter. His leg's gone. Or worse, half gone. And now someone has to go get him. In the mud. Through the same field. Where more mines probably are. The medics don't run. No one runs. You just move fast enough to feel like you're helping and slow enough not to die. They drag him back. Blood trailing behind like melted jam across slush. Someone pulls out a tourniquet. Another guy looks away and dry heaves. The rest of you keep marching. Because if you stop, you think about it too much. You learn not to trust the roads. They're supposed to be safer. They're not. The Germans know you'll use them, so they mine them too. Or worse, shell them. You walk on the edges, boots slipping into ditches already full of corpses and collapsed equipment. One jeep tries to move through and hits a pressure plate. The explosion lifts it a full 2 feet before it flips. No one survives. You keep walking. Every village looks the same now. Broken houses, mud streets, collapsed barns that smell like burning rubber and horse manure. You stop in one to take cover, only to find that the basement's flooded, the walls are crawling with rats, and there's a dead cow in the corner. Not even fresh, just bones and patches of fur. You don't sit. You just lean against a beam and pretend it's shelter. Your boots are beginning to come apart. The stitching's gone. The heel flaps when you walk. You wrap it in wire you found near a fence post. It cuts your ankle with every step. You don't care. You're more worried about slipping into a crater full of shell water and not getting back out. It's happened before. One guy sank in up to his waist. Took 3 of you to yank him out. Lost a boot. We left it behind. He didn't stop complaining until his foot turned blue. Your rifle keeps clogging. The mud gets in through the barrel, the chamber, the sling, your soul. You try wiping it down every hour. It just smears. Everything out here is the colour of rot now. Grey, brown, black. You stopped trying to clean your hands days ago. You just rubbed them on your coat and let the fabric absorb the filth. It's all the same colour anyway. You pass a sign nailed to a tree. Colmar, 12 km. You laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's insulting. You've been walking for 6 hours. That sign's been lying to you the whole time. Or maybe you're walking in circles. You wouldn't know. The mud all looks the same. So does the sky. Just flat and angry. You sit down for a second. Just a second. Your legs are twitching. Your spine feels like a rusted saw. And your toes? Well, you don't feel your toes anymore. Maybe they're still attached. Maybe they slid off into your sock somewhere around hour 3. You don't check. Then the lieutenant says it's time to move again. You stand up, your back screaming. Your boot rips at the heel again. The mud grabs it and tries to keep it. You fight. You win, sort of. One more step, then another, then another. The Colmar landscape doesn't want you here. It wants you buried in it. It's not just the enemy shooting at you. It's the ground, the roads, the buildings. Every inch of this place is trying to kill you, one step at a time. And you just keep walking. By now you've accepted that everything wants to kill you. The Germans, the terrain, the cold, your own boots. But what you didn't count on, what no one ever really prepares for, is the fact that your own side might shoot you before the enemy gets the chance. Friendly fire, the most ironic term in the war. There's nothing friendly about it. It's just bullets from people who like the same music as you. It usually starts with confusion. You're advancing on a fog-covered field. Visibility's down to 20 feet. You're crouched low, slipping through icy slush, whispering to the guy in front of you because the radio's dead and hand signals haven't worked since someone got shot through the wrist. And then, crack, a shot, not from ahead, from behind, or the side, doesn't matter. It's close, too close. Then another. Ping against a rock. A scream 2 lines over. Someone yells, "Hold fire!" Someone else yells, "Return fire!" And now you've got half a platoon shooting at itself in the dark, convinced the enemy has flanked, when really the guy they're aiming at is just another frozen GI, trying to remember where the hell the rally point was supposed to be. You dive for cover, pressing your face into the wet earth, praying that whoever's shooting doesn't have good aim. You don't shoot back. You don't even move. The last guy who waved his arms to signal "friend" took a round through the shoulder. Nobody risks it now. It's not even rare. Half the units in this sector are operating on poor intel and worse maps. Names of towns get scrambled, coordinates are off, radios fail, passwords change. You were told to expect support from another company at dawn. Turns out they showed up at midnight, right behind you. Surprise. Later, after the shouting stops and the shooting fades, someone does a head count and you're down 2 men. Nobody talks about it. Nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud. We killed our own. You just shift uncomfortably, adjust your gear, and keep moving. As if the confusion weren't enough, the weather's decided it wants a piece of you too. Like it wasn't already bad. Now it's worse. Wind picking up. Ice blowing sideways. Snow so fine it's basically powdered glass being thrown directly into your eyeballs. Your face is raw. Your cheeks split when you smile, so you don't. The scarf you've been breathing through has frozen solid against your mouth. Every inhale sounds like you're trying to suck air through a wet rag wrapped in broken glass. The snow isn't just a problem for your skin, it's messing with everything. Optics are useless. Visibility is garbage. Your binoculars have fogged up and frozen shut. Your scope is iced over. You try scraping it clear with a glove, and immediately regret it when the lens cracks. Even the wind has a personality now. Angry, sharp, and loud. It howls through broken buildings and across frozen fields like it's screaming at you to leave. But you can't, because the order came down. Push forward, clear the road, secure the village, and hold it. Always hold it. Holding means staying in one spot while the weather beats the hell out of you. You dig in, half buried in snow and mud, trying to create something that passes for a defensive position. The ground is too hard to dig properly, so you scrape out shallow trenches with frozen hands and hope they're deep enough to hide in if the shooting starts again. And while all this is happening, your socks are dying slow, squishy deaths inside your boots. At this point, dry socks are a myth. Something you talk about like it was a past life. Remember wool that didn't slosh? You ask. No one laughs. No one remembers. You've rotated your socks 3 times today. Doesn't help. They're all soaked. Not just wet. Waterlogged. Soggy sponges that cling to your skin and hold in every degree of cold like they're getting paid to do it. You could wring them out, but it won't matter. They'll be frozen again in an hour. So instead, you just sit there with numb feet that might as well be amputated. You can't feel your toes? Haven't in days? Could be gone already? You're too tired to check. The medic says change socks regularly, keep your feet dry, rotate them out, hang them around your neck, dry them with body heat. Great advice if your body was still producing heat, but you've been operating on cold coffee and half a chocolate bar since last night. You've got as much body heat as a snowman with anemia, Someone near you pulls off a boot. Mistake. The sock peels off with skin. His foot's pale and grey. They wrap it fast. Too fast. The medic doesn't say anything, just gives a look. The kind that says, this guy's not walking anywhere tomorrow. You put your own foot down, literally, into a fresh puddle of slush that seeped into the bottom of your trench. You mutter something under your breath. No one responds. They're too busy trying to fix their own misery. Another guy pulls out a waterproof bag. You want to laugh. He proudly unzips it and pulls out a pair of clean, folded socks. They're dry. They're warm. They're the last pair he's got. He slides them on and immediately steps into the same puddle you just found. No one laughs. No one needs to. The silence does it for you. Command radios in with more instructions. Hold the line. Expect counterattacks. Reinforcements maybe tomorrow? Maybe. Probably not. So you settle back into your miserable corner of the universe and try not to think about the fact that the next bullet might come from your own side. The snow picks up again. The wind howls louder. And your socks squish every time you shift your weight. Welcome to Alsace. When you hear tank support, it sounds good. Reassuring. Like help is finally here. Big steel monsters, heavy guns, armour thick enough to shrug off small arms like mosquito bites. That's what they told you in training. That tanks turn the tide. That when you see one rolling up, it means things are about to get better. They forgot to mention the part where most of them explode before they make it halfway down the road. Tanks are big. Loud, slow. Every German for 10 miles hears them coming, which means by the time one finally arrives in your sector, the enemy's already dialed in artillery, mines, and every single anti-tank gun they've got left. You watch the Sherman roll up the frozen trail, engine coughing black smoke, treads chewing up half-frozen earth. And you know it's not going to make it far. Sure enough, it hits a mine, not even 5 minutes in. Left track gone, hull leaning awkwardly like it's trying to sit down and give up. The crew bails out, or tries to. One guy's on fire. The others hit the ground and disappear behind the ridge. The tank smoulders. Not burning fully, just leaking smoke like a dying furnace. Loud and pathetic. Another one tries to push up alongside it. This one makes it farther, which only gives you a better view when the German 75mm gun punches straight through the front armour like it's paper. No explosion, just a clean hit, in, then out. And suddenly the turret isn't moving anymore. You hear someone screaming from inside. Not words. Just noise. Then it stops. You're still in your trench, watching all this unfold like a sick stage play. You're supposed to move with the armour. Use the cover it provides. But there is no cover now. Just twisted hulks of what used to be help. Eventually someone yells, "Advance with the tanks!" And a few guys obey out of habit more than hope. You climb out, crouch low, and make for the next crater. Keeping the burning Sherman to your right, praying its smouldering wreckage draws more attention than you do. It usually does. Until the ammunition cooks off, and the whole thing turns into a metal volcano. That happens a few minutes later. You hit the ground. Everyone does, a thunderclap of steel-on-steel violence, followed by shrapnel peppering the trees like metallic hail. Tank warfare sounds exciting until you realise most of it is watching something larger and slower than you die more publicly. And don't think being inside one is safer. You talk to the crews when you can. The ones who've lasted this long are all the same. Blank stares. hands that won't stop twitching, uniforms that reek of oil and smoke. One guy tells you that when a shell hits just right, the tank doesn't explode, it pops. That's the word he used. Pops. 1 second you're yelling over the radio, the next there's just pink mist where the gunner used to be. Inside a tank you're blind. You see the world through slit scopes or periscopes that fog up instantly in the cold. You can't hear anything over the engine. You can't smell anything but diesel and sweat. And when you get hit, there's no escaping. Fire spreads fast in an enclosed metal box. Ammunition cooks off. Hatches jam. Crews burn. It doesn't take long. You've seen the aftermath. Blackened skeletons curled up near open escape hatches. They made it halfway out. You used to think tank crews had it better. Now you're not so sure. At least when you're on foot, you can hit the dirt. In a tank, you are the target, but still, command keeps sending them. Armour push at dawn, they say. Tanks will lead the way. You try not to laugh, or cry. It's all the same now. The tanks show up, make noise, draw fire, die. If you're lucky, you can use the smoking chassis as temporary cover. If not, you find yourself stuck between a stalled Sherman and a hedgerow full of Germans with Panzerfausts and a grudge. You pass a crew huddled behind their wrecked M10, trying to light a cigarette with shaking hands. One guy's missing an eyebrow. Another's got blood on his collar and doesn't seem to notice. They don't look at you. They just keep flicking the lighter, even though the wind keeps killing the flame. You ask what happened. Hit twice, one says. We got out on the second one. He doesn't say anything else. He just stares into the smoke, like maybe the rest of the war is hiding in there somewhere. You keep moving. Another tank passes, treads whining, turret turning like a drunk trying to find the door. You don't look at it. You don't want to know what happens to this one. Someone makes a joke about riding on top. Everyone ignores him. That's what you do when you're too tired to argue. Just keep walking. Let the tank roll past. Hope it draws the fire. Hope it doesn't explode too close to your position. Hope they stop telling you support's on the way, when you know full well support is just another coffin with a cannon. The sun's barely up. The ground is still shaking from the last explosion. And your tank support, what's left of it, is already on fire. So you lower your helmet, grip your rifle, and get ready to push forward on your own. Again. Nobody tells you how much of war is spent digging. Not charging, not shooting, not rescuing civilians or raising flags. Just digging. With frozen hands, in frozen dirt, using a shovel that might as well be a spoon. You dig constantly, for cover, for warmth, for the illusion of safety. But mostly, you're just digging your own grave and pretending it's not. It starts like always. You reach some nameless field, or the remains of a hamlet that looks like it got into a bar fight with the Luftwaffe. Your unit spreads out. The lieutenant says, "Dig in." He might as well say, "Start dying slowly." The ground is hard, icy, covered in snow and crusted with layers of frozen mud that crack but never break. You jab your entrenching tool into the earth and get nowhere. You kneel, grunt, try again. Nothing. Your fingers go numb within minutes. You take your gloves off to get a better grip. Bad idea. The shovel handle is metal. The cold bites into your skin instantly. Your knuckles split open. You bleed a little, but you don't really feel it. The blood freezes before it drips. So you switch hands. You stomp the shovel in with your boot, over and over. It sinks maybe an inch. You scoop out a chunk of icy muck, and throw it over your shoulder. Do that about 1,000 more times, and maybe you'll have a hole big enough to hunch in. Not to lie down, that's a luxury. You're not making a bed, you're making a place to not die. Someone next to you hit something hard. Not a rock, not dirt. It's bone, human, maybe German, maybe French. Maybe someone from your side who didn't get buried deep enough. He doesn't say anything, just shifts a few feet over and starts again. You make a silent promise not to look too closely at what comes out of your own hole. Best not to know who you're displacing. You're soaked with sweat now, despite the cold. It's the kind of sweat that doesn't help. It freezes on your back the second you stop moving. Your jacket stiffens. Your breath clouds your vision. You cough and keep digging. Eventually your hole is good enough, which means you can sit in it and maybe, if you're lucky, keep your head below the tree line. You pile up some snow and dirt in front of you as a makeshift wall. Maybe it'll stop a bullet. Maybe it'll just give your corpse something to slump against when the shell hits. Someone down the line stops digging and sits back. He lights a cigarette with shaking fingers. The match flares briefly before dying in the wind. He doesn't try again. Just holds the unlit smoke in his mouth like it's a promise. You wonder if he's already accepted that this is the last hole he'll ever make. Your trench isn't deep. It's not wide. It's not even dry. There's water seeping in from the side, slow and steady, like the earth is trying to reclaim you before the war does. You stick your pack against the wall to block the flow. Doesn't help. You can already feel it creeping up the back of your pants. The sergeant walks by and says to make sure it's deep enough for cover, but shallow enough to climb out of. You nod. You don't respond. You're too busy deciding whether to keep digging or just lie down and let the mud take you. There's a lull in the wind. The silence makes it worse. You can hear your own breathing. The faint hiss of someone nearby sharpening a bayonet, not because it needs it, but because it gives his hand something to do. Someone asks if we're staying here for the night. Nobody answers. You are. Of course you are. No one digs this hard for a 5-minute stop. You're sleeping in this pit, eating in it, holding position in it, maybe dying in it. Later, you sit inside the hole with your knees pulled to your chest, arms wrapped around your rifle like it's a friend you don't trust. The cold seeps in. Your toes twitch. You hope that means they're still attached. You don't have the energy to check. Someone mutters about the shelling starting again soon. You nod. You've already seen the pattern. Dig in, get shelled, crawl out, dig again. Repeat until evacuation, amputation or nothing. You try to sleep? Can't. Too cold. Too damp. Too aware that this foxhole is basically a freezer drawer waiting to be closed. You shift your weight, adjust your scarf, and listen to the wind rattle the trees above like bones in a bag. Tomorrow you'll move again. Or maybe you won't. Maybe this field, this ditch, this barely there scrape in the mud is where you stay. Long enough for the snow to cover you. Long enough to be forgotten. You close your eyes and dig your heels into the slush. It's not cover. It's just a shallow grave you're still breathing in. You think you've got a minute to breathe. That's your first mistake. You're sitting in your frozen trench, scarf pulled up to your nose, trying to trick your hands into feeling again when someone 2 holes over starts shouting. Not panicked, not hysterical, just loud, urgent, like he's calling out a bad weather report. Movement, left flank. You poke your head up, just enough to regret it immediately. They're out there. Germans, not shadows, not whispers. Actual shapes, moving fast between trees and hedgerows, coordinated, disciplined, and very much not retreating. You weren't supposed to be here long. Just hold a position while the next unit rotated in. That was the plan, but plans mean nothing when the enemy decides to push back hard. And now they're doing just that. A full counterattack. Not rumour, not recon. You are surrounded. It happens fast. It always does. The first mortar drops behind your line. Not ahead, behind. That's when you know they're too close. Artillery from the front, you expect. This means they've looped around, found a weakness, and now they're squeezing. You're the weakness. Shouting breaks out. Someone's radioing for backup, but the signal's garbage. Too much interference. Trees, terrain, possibly a jammer. It doesn't matter. No one's coming. You check your rifle. Still jammed? No, working, for now. You chamber a round, shoulder it, and aim at the movement ahead. Muzzle flashes flicker through the trees. Your ears ring before the bullets even hit dirt near your feet. You duck. Return fire. No time to aim. You just shoot. They're close enough that aiming is optional. The guy to your right goes down. No scream. Just drops. You don't check. You can't. Your own trench suddenly doesn't feel deep enough. You press low, press hard, feel the icy water creep higher up your back. Doesn't matter. You fire again. Bolt action. Eject. Fire. Repeat. You feel like you're operating machinery underwater. There's yelling in German now, not distant, close. One voice shouts for them to flank left. Another yells for grenades. You understand enough to know you're in trouble. Then one lands near your trench. Not a grenade. A potato masher. Wooden handled. Classic. You don't think. You just kick it out hard, like you're punting a football with your life depending on it. It explodes 5 feet away. Close enough to rattle your teeth. Your vision blurs. Dirt rains down. You wipe your face with a glove and come away with blood. Not sure if it's yours. Doesn't matter. The trench line is folding. You see guys pulling back, others refusing to move. One's curled in a ball. Another's firing blindly, screaming. Someone's yelling to hold the line. You think it's the lieutenant. He's bleeding from the temple, but still standing, which counts as leadership now. Return fire is sporadic. You're low on ammo. You dig into your pack, fingers shaking, trying to load clips with hands that feel like they belong to someone else. A round cracks past your head and buries itself into the log you were just using for cover. You duck again, too late. The shockwave alone leaves your ears ringing and your face burning. Then the fog rolls in, thick, cold, intentional. You know it's smoke. Not random. Tactical. They're trying to blind you while they move in. It works. You can't see anything now except silhouettes and flashes. You fire again. The silhouette drops. Maybe a hit. Maybe he tripped. Doesn't matter. You keep shooting. One of them gets close. Real close. Jumps into your trench like he's coming down a water slide. You both freeze. You're inches apart. He's young. Too young. His rifle's jammed. Yours isn't. You don't wait. You squeeze the trigger. His body jerks once, falls and doesn't move again. You stare for half a second too long before shoving him out and taking his spot against the wall. More yelling, more fire. You've lost track of how many there are. All you know is they're all around you. Shots come from the trees, the road, the barn behind you. The barn you thought was empty, it's not. They're using it for cover now. They were probably in there all night, listening, waiting. You call out for ammo, nobody answers. You crawl toward another trench, hoping someone's still alive in it. You find a body, no helmet, eyes open. He's holding extra mags. You take them. He doesn't complain. At some point, someone calls for a fallback. Not officially. Just one guy yelling that he's pulling back toward the ridge. You follow barely. Moving low, stumbling, slipping in the muck. You fire twice into the trees behind you, more for noise than aim. The trees open into a clearing. There's a stone wall. You drop behind it, gasping. Others arrive. 3, maybe 4, out of a dozen. You don't ask where the rest are. You don't want to know. The attack isn't over. The firing continues. But for now you're breathing, and your rifle hasn't quit. Surrounded? Yeah. Surprised? Not really. Still alive? For now. There's no real pause, just a slowdown. The gunfire dips, the shouting fades. You're behind a low wall with half your squad, maybe less, and your ears are still ringing like church bells. You look down at your arm and realise you've been hit. Not bad, not good either, just enough to hurt, enough to make everything else blur for a second. Your sleeve is soaked, not warm, cold, sticky. The blood's already started to freeze. You call for the medic. Everyone does, eventually. Some yell, some whisper. You just mutter it at first. Medic! Then louder. Medic! Someone 2 trenches over is screaming it like a prayer. You don't know if they're alive or just loud. Hard to tell at this point. And then he shows up, like a ghost with a satchel. The medic. No helmet. No rifle. Just a red cross on his arm. That's supposed to mean something. It doesn't. Germans don't care. They shoot medics too. But he's moving anyway, crouching low, boots soaked, face crusted with dirt and someone else's blood. He looks 10 years older than he did this morning, which is impressive, considering he was already halfway to ancient by army standards at 26. He kneels beside the guy next to you, a leg wound, nasty one, thighs split open like a busted sausage, bone showing. The guy's not screaming anymore, just twitching. The medic pulls out a bandage, presses hard. The wounded guy jerks, eyes wide. "Morphine!" he croaks. "Please." The medic shakes his head. "Out!" 2 syllables. Cold, final. He's not lying. You know, because he's already handed out every surette he had to people who were either dead within an hour or passed out long before the pain stopped. The supply chain's broken. The weather's hell. The next batch of morphine might be days away. Might not come at all. So instead, he gives the guy a stick to bite down on. Then pours sulphur powder into the wound, wraps it tight, ties it off. It doesn't look clean. Doesn't look sterile. It just looks done. Then he moves on to you. Your arm's still bleeding. You unwrap the scarf around it so he can see. He doesn't say anything. Just pulls out a compress, slaps it on, and wraps it like he's bandaging a pipe. Tight enough to make you wince. But you don't complain. You know better. You look at the other guy. The one who was hit in the stomach. He's lying flat, pale, not moving. Eyes open but not seeing. You ask if he's dead. The medic checks his pulse. Nods once. Then pulls the guy's tags and moves on. That's it. No ceremony. No words. Another scream. Someone's been hit further down the line. Through the neck, maybe? You can't see. You just hear the gurgling. The medic hesitates. Looks down at his bag. Looks back up at the trees. Then goes anyway. You sit there, pressing your own bandage now, trying not to think about the fact that your best hope for survival just ran toward a sound like someone drowning on dry land. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. Time doesn't work right out here. You check your arm. The bleeding slowed, but your fingers are starting to swell, purple. Could be the cold. Could be circulation. Could be both. You don't ask for help. There's none left. Someone next to you is crying. Quiet. Controlled. Not sobbing. Just leaking tears they can't stop. You don't look. You don't talk. What are you going to say? It's okay. It's not. Eventually the medic returns. He's walking slower. Face blank. He kneels down and starts packing his bag. You ask about the guy. He just shakes his head. You want to be angry, but you're not. Because you saw the look on his face. The one that says, I've patched 3 dozen people this week, and most of them didn't make it. He finishes packing, stands, shoulders his bag, blood on his pants, dried, fresh, mixed. You can't tell. You ask quietly, any more morphine coming? He doesn't answer. He just walks away. Nobody's quite sure who's in charge anymore. Your lieutenant got hit in the last push. Not dead. Just quiet now. Pale and slumped against a tree with a field dressing pressed to his ribs. And that 1,000-yard stare that says he's probably not coming back from wherever his mind just went. So now it's the sergeant's job. Or maybe the corporal's. Or maybe it's yours. Because you're the one who still remembers how to read a damn map. But it doesn't matter who's in charge if nobody can talk to anyone else. The radio's dead. Not figuratively, literally. Shot, stepped on, or soaked through so many times it might as well be a brick wrapped in canvas. You poke it once. No response. You jiggle the wires. Tap the handset. All you get is static. Or maybe just silence. You can't even tell anymore. You check the battery pack. It's cold. Frozen solid. The wires have cracked and frayed. You trace them back to the antenna, which is bent in half like a broken fishing rod and wrapped with tape that hasn't been sticky since November. The radio guy, the actual one, is gone. Somewhere behind you. Maybe dead. Maybe wounded. Maybe just walked off. Because being useless in a firefight is a special kind of humiliation. Someone tries shouting for headquarters. Like they're going to hear you from 3 miles away, through a forest, a blizzard, and 3 German machine gun nests. Hello? He yells. Nothing. He tries again. Still nothing. Eventually he just swears and throws the handset into the snow. You don't blame him. At this point, even yelling feels like a waste of energy. So you try the backup, the field phone. You follow the line. A long, black cord strung through trees, under roots, half buried in snow. It leads to a spool next to a blown-out farmhouse. You pick up the handset, crank the little handle, and pray someone on the other end isn't also being shelled. Nothing. You crank again. Still nothing. You follow the wire. About 20 yards out, you find the problem. It's snapped in half. Not cut. Blown apart. Probably shrapnel. Maybe a tank. Either way, you're not fixing it with tape and goodwill. You look around for spare cable. There's none. The last guy who had a reel of line used it to tie his boot together. And that's it. You're cut off. No command. No reinforcements. No artillery support. No resupply. Just you, your squad, and the constant creeping suspicion that everyone has forgotten you're even out here. You start thinking about how ridiculous this all is. You're in the middle of a mechanized war. Tanks, planes, bombs, radios. And here you are, crouched in the woods, yelling like it's the 1700s, and hoping the guy in the next foxhole understands what their flanking left means through gritted teeth and windburn. You try sending a runner. Some poor guy with decent legs and a terrible sense of self-preservation volunteers to make the dash back to battalion. You all watch him go, sprinting low through the snow, slipping once, disappearing into the fog. 20 minutes pass, then an hour. He doesn't come back. Maybe he made it. Maybe he got hit. Maybe he just kept running and didn't stop. You don't ask. You just assume he's gone and start drawing plans in the dirt with a stick like you're organising a school play and not a live fire situation. Later, you hear a voice in the trees. Could be one of yours. Could be German. You shout. No answer. You wait. You shout again. This time someone fires back. You take cover, return fire, and realise too late that it might have been your own guy trying to find his way back. Or it wasn't. Either way, you stop yelling after that. You think about using signal flares. You've got one. Green, maybe yellow. You're not sure anymore because the label's worn off, and your gloves are too bulky to feel the texture ring. Plus, you don't even know what colour means what anymore. Green could mean we're alive, or we're surrounded. You can't remember. You don't fire it. Instead you rely on shouting. Hand signals. The occasional rock thrown in the right direction to get someone's attention. It's primitive. It's slow. It's stupid. But it's all you've got. The guys next to you are arguing over a map. It's wet, folded wrong. Half the landmarks are gone. Someone says they're facing east. Someone else swears it's north. You don't know. The sun hasn't come out in a week, and the compass broke when you used it to hammer a nail into a crate. Every hour or so, someone asks, "Any word from command?" And someone else replies, "Not yet." Eventually they stop asking, because no word becomes the word. Silence becomes your standing orders, so you wait, and you guess, and you shoot at anything that moves. Because in the Colmar Pocket, the only thing worse than being surrounded is being surrounded and unheard. You're told to push into the town. That's the new objective. Sweep and clear, they say. Take Colmar, street by street, building by building. They make it sound like housework. Like all it'll take is some coordination and elbow grease. What they don't mention is that Colmar isn't a town anymore. It's a puzzle box. Every street corner hides a sniper. Every door has a wire. Every building wants to kill you. You enter from the south. Or at least you think it's south. The signs are gone, blown apart, or buried under rubble. The map's useless now. The landmarks aren't there anymore. Just piles of bricks where churches used to be. Your first view of the town is a collapsed storefront with a bicycle melted into the window frame. You don't ask what happened to the rider. You move cautiously. One squad up, one squad covering. It's slow, exhausting. There's no cover except broken walls and burned out cars, and every step feels like you're volunteering to get shot. The streets are narrow, choke points, perfect for ambushes. You don't walk in the open. You dart, crouch, hug walls like they might protect you. Then someone steps through a doorway. The explosion is immediate. A soft pop, then a roar. Dust, debris, fire. You hit the ground. When the smoke clears, half the wall's gone. And so is the guy who opened the door. What's left of him is spread across the snow in pieces. No one moves. No one speaks. You were told the town was mined. You just didn't think they meant everything. The booby traps aren't fancy. Most are simple. Tripwires behind doors. Grenades tied to string. Pressure plates under floorboards. Some are just shells rigged to fall when someone opens a window. One building collapses on itself after someone bumps the wrong beam. The whole place folds in like a cardboard box. Dust clouds out into the street like the house just exhaled its last breath. You advance anyway. You have to. Each building becomes a ritual. You don't enter doors. You go through walls. If you're lucky, the walls aren't load-bearing. If you're not, you bury yourself. You send one guy in while the others cover. He opens cabinets with a bayonet. He checks behind every curtain. He knocks on floorboards with the butt of his rifle. There are civilians still in town. Not many. The ones you find are pale, silent. They stare at you like ghosts. Some have been hiding in basements for weeks. They don't speak. You don't ask them to. You just point, gesture toward the safe zone, if there still is one, and move on. One building looks empty. You enter slow, quiet. First room's clear. Second room has stairs. You go up, boots creaking on wood that feels too soft. At the top, a hallway, 3 doors. You pick the one on the left. You open it. Nothing. Empty. You breathe. Then the room explodes, not from the door, from the ceiling. A shell rigged with wire, tucked between beams, delayed fuse. The guy behind you gets the worst of it, blown backward down the stairs. You hear his body hit the landing, and don't need to check to know it's over. You don't go upstairs after that. Every window becomes a risk. Every curtain a threat. You see movement across the street and raise your rifle, but it's just wind blowing a bedsheet. You don't lower the rifle anyway. Snipers take shots at random. You never see them. You just hear the crack. Then someone hits the ground. Then the shouting starts. Sometimes you return fire. Usually you don't. Not because you don't want to, but because there's nothing to shoot at. They're too good, too hidden. You just hug a wall and wait for them to pick another target. By afternoon your squad's split. One half is 3 blocks over last, heard from through a shouted message passed by hand. Radios don't work. Walls are too thick. Interference too high. You operate by memory now. Which buildings are clear? Which ones have traps? Which ones are just rubble pretending to be shelter? You pass a bakery. Or what used to be one. The sign is barely legible. Inside there's flour everywhere, mixed with ash and blood. Someone's boot print goes in but doesn't come out. You don't follow it. You enter a house that smells like rot. A family photo hangs on the wall, still straight somehow. You don't look at it for long. You check the closets. The drawers? Under the bed? Always under the bed? That's where one trap was hidden. A glass jar of explosives, capped with a nail and stuck to a tripwire. No bigger than a canteen. Still took off a guy's leg. By nightfall you've cleared maybe half a block. Maybe. It feels like a mile. Your ears ring from the explosions. Your mouth tastes like brick dust and cordite. Your fingers are too numb to reload without looking. There's no rest, no sleep. Just rotation. One squad watches while the other eats, or tries to. You chew cold rations behind a pile of bricks and listen to someone upstairs argue with a floorboard that might be wired to kill them. Welcome to Colmar. Every step is a gamble. Every door might be your last. And the only way out is through. Night patrol. The words alone feel like a punishment. Like you drew the short straw in a war where every straw is already burning. It's your turn, so you go. No argument. No drama. You just nod, check your rifle, pull your scarf higher over your face, and step into the snow. There's no moon, just clouds thick with more snow, and the kind of silence that makes your teeth hurt. Every sound is too loud. Your boots on the frozen street, the metal clink of your canteen, the soft rattle of ammo in your chest rig. You try to move quietly, but nothing's quiet in this weather. Even breathing sounds like a giveaway. The town looks different at night. Bigger. Meaner. Every shadow is suspect. Every building you cleared in daylight now looks like it never saw a soul. You shine your flashlight once, just once. The beam catches broken glass and a dead dog in the doorway. That's enough of that. You turn it off. You'll take your chances with the dark. Your orders are vague. Scout the perimeter. Look for movement. Report anything unusual. What qualifies as unusual out here? Everything is unusual. A door that's closed when it was open. A window with frost wiped away from the inside. Footprints that don't match your treads. It's all suspicious. All threatening. And most of it is probably harmless. But probably doesn't help much when you're this tired and twitchy. You're round a corner. There's a burned out truck in the street. Its engine block glistens with ice. You skirt around it slowly, watching the windows of the buildings nearby. One of them has curtains. That's odd. Most houses here had the windows blown out days ago. You stare for a while. No movement. You keep going. Your foot catches on something. Wire. You freeze, heart racing. You follow it with your eyes, down, across the curb, into a doorway. You don't move. You just slowly shift your weight back and step around it. Booby trap. Old maybe. Or new. Doesn't matter. You make a mental note. You won't mention it later. You'll forget. Or choose to forget. The snow picks up. Not heavy, but steady. Soft. Relentless. It covers your helmet, your shoulders, your boots. It mutes everything. Now you can't even hear your own steps. That should make you feel safer. It doesn't. You check your watch. Can't see the dial. You forgot the loom wore off 3 days ago. You guess it's somewhere near midnight. You guess a lot of things now. Halfway through the road, you stop. Not because you saw something, because you didn't. No lights, no movement, no sound. You try to remember if you passed your buddy's signal point. Maybe you did. Maybe he's behind you. Maybe he's not. That's when it hits you. You're alone, like really alone. Not I'm on point and they're behind me, alone. Not they're watching my six alone. No. Alone, alone. And the street is dead. The radio's off. There's no patrol in sight. You haven't seen another soul in 15 minutes, maybe longer. You whisper a name. Nothing. You call again, a little louder. Still nothing. You think about backtracking, about heading to the rally point. But which way was it again? The buildings all look the same. That corner with the truck. Did it have 2 tyres or 1? Was that crate there before? Your heart rate climbs. Not panicked, just alert. You don't want to say lost, but that's what this is. You're a soldier in the middle of a war zone and you don't even know where your own lines are. You kneel for a second. Listen. Wait. Snow drips off a gutter. A shutter creaks in the wind. Then footsteps. Not yours. You go still. Rifle up. Slow breath. They're close. 2 sets. Maybe 3. Crunching through the snow like they own it. You hug the wall. Peek around the corner. Shapes. Dark. No markings. No sound. You hold your breath. Try to identify them. Could be yours. Could be Germans. You whisper the password once. No response. You whisper again. Louder. Still nothing. One of the shapes pauses. Looks your way. You raise your rifle. Just a little. Then the shape moves on. You don't shoot. Not because you're sure, but because if you're wrong, it's over. You wait until the shapes disappear into the dark. You still don't know who they were. You don't want to know. You stay put for a long while after that. Eventually you make your way back. No shortcut, no heroics. Just slow, methodical steps in a direction that feels familiar. You pass the wire again. You pass the dog. You pass a set of fresh boot prints and don't ask who made them. Finally, a light, dim, shielded. The glow of a cigarette behind a sandbag wall. You don't call out. You don't wave. You just keep walking until the guy behind the bag recognises your shape and nods. You get lost, he asks. You shake your head. No, you lie. Just cold. There's this idea in your head, or at least there was, back before the shelling, before the night patrols, before everything turned grey, that if you ever got captured, you'd just wait it out. Geneva Conventions, Red Cross visits, maybe some stale bread and a bunk in a POW camp. You'd get a number, answer some questions, give them your name, rank, and serial, and sit out the rest of the war from behind barbed wire. That idea dies the second you hear the boots behind you and feel the rifle barrel pressed to your back. It happened during a forward recon. You and 2 others, checking an old barn near the edge of town. You push through the door. It creaks, and then you're staring down the barrel of a Mauser. You reach for your rifle, too slow. Hands go up, the shouting starts. German, harsh, fast. You drop your weapon. You think your buddy tries to run. You hear the gunshot. You don't look. They tie your hands. Not ropes, wire. Cold, sharp, fast. 1 loop around your wrists, twisted tight until you flinch. They drag you through the alley, past the broken fences, into the dark. It's not cinematic. It's clumsy. They shove. You trip. 1 kicks your leg and barks something. You nod like you understood. They don't put a bag on your head. That's too neat. They just shove your helmet down low and punch you in the gut when you try to lift it to see. You walk hunched, coughing, boots slipping on frozen ground, blood drying in your nose. They bring you into a cellar. Damp, mouldy, probably a wine room once. Now it smells like smoke and piss. You hear someone coughing in the corner. Someone else moaning. You glance that way. Another uniform. Not German. Not moving. They sit you on a crate. Still tied. You try to speak. Medic, you mutter. Wounded? The German closest to you just raises an eyebrow and walks away. Then it starts. They're not interested in your name or your serial number. They want positions, schedules, command names, radio codes. You stick to the basics. Name, rank, serial. You say it like a prayer. Over and over, the first hit comes fast. Open-handed, across the face, then again. Then a boot to the chest, then the questions again, then the punches again. You don't keep count. One of them speaks English, broken, but clear enough. You think we don't know already, he says. You shake your head. You want to say, then why ask? But your mouth won't open right. Too much blood. They stop after a while. Or maybe they're just bored. You slump forward. You expect to pass out. You don't. You stay awake? That's the worst part. Hours later, could be minutes, could be half a day. They leave. Just 1 guard now, sitting across the room, smoking. The cigarette glows red in the dark. You watch the end flare every time he takes a drag. He looks away. And you run. You don't think. You just move. Stand. Slam your shoulder into him. He goes down. The wire cuts your wrists deeper as you fumble for the latch. You get it. Door swings open. Cold air hits you like a slap. You run barefoot through snow, stumbling, half blind, bleeding but moving. You don't stop. You run until your lungs are fire and your feet are ice. Through alleys, past fences. You hit a ditch and slide into it, gasping, heart hammering like it's trying to break out of your chest. Eventually you find someone, an American outpost, a rifle pointed at your head, voices yelling. You raise your hands, blood running down your arms. "Don't shoot," you rasp. "I'm one of you." They hesitate, then recognition. Then hands pull you out of the ditch, into light, onto a stretcher. You think it's over. But it's not. Because one of the new replacements, fresh kid, wide-eyed, full of nerves, sees your blood-stained coat, hears your mangled German-accented plea for help, and panics. You hear him say, "He's German, he's one of them." You try to speak, you try to explain, but it's too late. The shot cracks the air, misses your chest by an inch. You hit the ground again, screaming, pleading, until someone knocks the rifle from the kid's hands, and someone else grabs your dog tags to show them around like they mean anything anymore. You lie there in the snow, blinking at the sky, wondering how many times you have to survive the war to actually survive the war. They call it a victory. Word spreads through the ranks like a rumour. Colmar is secured. The pocket is collapsing. The enemy is pulling back across the Rhine. Someone hoists a flag over the courthouse, or what's left of it. You hear cheering in the distance. Gunfire too, celebratory, not hostile, supposedly. You don't cheer. You're sitting on a crate outside a half-demolished inn, boot off, unwrapping what's left of your foot. The toes are black. Not all of them, but enough. You poke one with a stick. No response. Just the dull, leathery stiffness of something that's no longer part of you. Frostbite, they said. Trenchfoot, too. Doesn't matter what name you give it, those toes are done. You pull your sock back over them, if only to spare the others from having to look. Some lieutenant walks by, smiling like this was all part of the plan. He claps 2 soldiers on the back and says something about pushing forward to the next phase. You stare at him. He doesn't look at you. He wouldn't recognise you anyway. Your face is a mask of scabs, dirt and fatigue. You haven't seen a mirror in weeks. Probably for the best. Your squad's gone. Not dead, all of them, just gone. Different platoons. Different assignments. Some got rotated out. Some didn't make it past that last artillery barrage. Others just disappeared into the snow, like footprints you forget to follow. You remember all their faces. You just can't remember their names anymore. Someone hands you a tin of cold beans. You don't eat them. You just hold them in your lap and stare. Across the street, 2 guys are burning documents in a metal barrel. The smoke smells like ink and mouldy paper. One of them is laughing. You have no idea why. Your rifle leans against the wall next to you. You haven't cleaned it in days. The bolt still works somehow. You think about throwing it in the river, not out of protest, just to be done with it, but your hands won't let go. A chaplain walks through the street, offering small metal crosses and Bibles. You take one, not because you're religious, you're not even sure what you believe in anymore, but because it's warm from his pocket, and your fingers are still numb. The shelling stopped 2 days ago, that's what everyone says. You don't believe it. You still flinch at every loud sound. Doors slamming, boots on wood, someone coughing too hard. All of it sends your heart spiking, your breath catching. You haven't slept more than 20 minutes in a row. You don't lie down anymore. You just lean, nap, startle, repeat. A guy down the road is digging. Not for a trench this time. For a grave. No ceremony. No priest. Just a shallow pit and a guy wrapped in a tarp. You ask who it is. Nobody answers. You don't ask again. There's a truck parked nearby. Medical insignia. A medic climbs out with a clipboard. He's doing toe checks. Seriously. one by one, lifting blankets, peeling back socks, making notes. "This one goes," he says, tapping a guy's foot like it's overripe fruit. "This one might be salvageable." Then he gets to you. You pull your sock down. He doesn't even flinch. "You'll lose 3, he says flatly. "Maybe 4. We'll see what we can do." You nod like it's a casual thing, like he just told you you've got a cold. No one calls it PTSD, not here, not yet. They call it fatigue, or nerves, or being shell happy. You see it in others. Guys who talk to themselves. Guys who stare for hours at nothing. One guy keeps asking what day it is, even though nobody knows. You think about telling him, "It's the day we won," but the words taste wrong in your mouth. Someone's playing music now. A phonograph dragged out of a basement and miraculously still working. The record skips every few seconds. Some kind of jazz tune, maybe. Something cheerful. Completely out of place. You close your eyes for a second, just to listen. You expect peace. You get images. A face screaming. A hand reaching. Blood on snow. Wire snapping. A grenade rolling across a floorboard. The images don't stop. They never do. You open your eyes again. Across the street, a boy, civilian, maybe 13, walks past dragging a wooden cart. It's full of empty shell casings. He's collecting them, probably to sell as scrap. He doesn't look at you. You don't blame him. You're told to prepare for reassignment, not rest, not recovery. Reassignment. Another front. Another push. Another chance to give up more of your body, or mind, or both. You wonder what's left to take. A few fingers. The rest of your hearing? Your ability to sleep with the lights off? They call it a victory. You call it what it is. A win that cost more than it gave. A town that still smells like burnt meat. A flag hanging over a pile of corpses. And you, sitting there, watching it all, waiting for the next fight with half a foot and none of your soul left. The ship docks. The train pulls in. The door creaks open. However it happens, you're home. Except it doesn't feel like home. It feels like a movie set someone built based on memory. Familiar shapes, wrong lighting. The town hasn't changed. The streets are still there. The stores still have windows. The sidewalks still crack the same way. But you're not the same. You walk down Main Street with a cane now. The good leg does most of the work. The bad one's more for balance than motion. The doctors call it partial loss. You call it what's left. They give you a welcome. Sort of. A few claps. A handshake. Somebody buys you a beer. You nod, say thank you, smile when you're supposed to. You go through the motions like someone acting out a role they didn't audition for. Everyone says the same thing. You're lucky. Lucky to be alive. Lucky to be home. Lucky to have made it through without dying in some hole halfway across the world. You want to ask them if they've ever sat in a frozen trench for 3 weeks wondering which body part will fall off first. You want to ask if they've ever had to choose between pulling the trigger or getting bayoneted in the dark by someone who looked your age. You don't. You just nod again. Your family tries. They really do. But they don't get it. How could they? They ask polite questions they hope you won't really answer. Was it bad over there? Did you see much fighting? You say, yeah, that's it. Because if you told them what you actually saw, they'd either cry, or worse, they'd tell you you're exaggerating. They don't notice when you flinch at fireworks, or when you can't sleep, or when the sound of rain on the roof reminds you of artillery thudding in the snow. They don't know that when you close your eyes at night, you don't see dreams. You see frozen corpses and broken houses and the face of a kid who begged you, in a language you didn't understand before you shot him anyway. They say time heals. You'd laugh if your throat still worked right. Time doesn't heal. Time hides. It buries things under paperwork and parades and years of silence. The doctors call it post-traumatic stress. Some still call it combat fatigue. A few just call you broken. They ask you how you feel. You say fine. They ask if the dreams are recurring. You say not really. They ask if you want to talk to someone. You don't. Not because you don't want to, but because they won't get it. Not unless they were there. In Colmar. In the snow. With the mines. And the cold. And the screaming. They send you home with a prescription and a pamphlet. The pills don't help. The pamphlet ends up in the trash. Your foot still hurts. The one that's gone. The pain isn't sharp. It's a presence. Like a ghost. A phantom that visits every night to remind you what used to be there. They say it's normal. Phantom limb syndrome. You say it feels like the war followed you home and refuses to let go. You wake up sometimes grabbing for a rifle that isn't there. You sleep in short bursts, fully dressed. You still check the corners of your room before lying down. Once, you dug your fingernails into the wall at night, thinking you were back in the foxhole and needed to widen it before the next shell hit. They call you a hero. You hate that word. Heroes don't bury friends in the snow. Heroes don't flinch when children run past. Heroes don't pray for frostbite because it's a good excuse to get off the line. But you don't say any of this. You just wear the medal they gave you, the one you didn't ask for, and shake hands with men in suits who say they're proud of you. You go to the store. A kid asks if you were in the war. You nod. He asks, "Did you win?" You want to say define win, but you just smile and say, "Yeah." He walks away. You stand there with a phantom foot, a silent scream lodged in your throat, and a memory of gunfire so loud you still hear it in your molars. You made it out. You're home. And no one understands a damn thing. That's it. That was the Battle of the Colmar Pocket. One of the coldest, ugliest, least romanticised chunks of World War II. You probably never learned about it in school. Most people didn't, because it wasn't cinematic. It wasn't clean. It wasn't glorious. It was just cold, bloody, slow, and miserable. And the worst part? Most of the people who lived through it never talked about it. Not because they couldn't, but because nobody really wanted to hear it. Not then. Not now. So if you're still here, still listening, thanks. Maybe now you understand just a little more about what history actually felt like. And if this helped you sleep tonight, that says something about both of us. Good night.